All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Take roll call, and Ray Fernandez, the chair, is absent tonight. Laura Hess is here. Stephen Blagden.
Here.
Rick Brooks.
Here.
Jim Lucas.
Here.
Peter Espinoza. Here. Would you all please stand for the flags?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have a couple of cards for public comment. I'm going to put those over until we get to the public hearing about the Canola Road project. And we'll move to the consent calendar. First item is the minutes from the February 24th, 2026 Planning Commission meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review it? And does anybody have questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Blagden.
Yes, an edit on number 5. We voted 5-0 to approve the minutes as amended.
Anybody else?
No, I'm fine.
All right, I don't think we need a motion to amend the minutes, but is it acceptable then, Rafferty, to make that amendment? Okay. And then I guess as amended, we can entertain a motion to
I move approval as amended.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All right, and I'll take a vote then. Mr. Lucas?
Yes.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
I vote yes. Mr. Blagden?
Yes.
And Mr. Espinoza? Great. All right, this sixth item is the monthly Community Development Department status report for February 2026.
Thank you, Vice Chair and Planning Commission. So in the month of February, we issued 6 building permits for a valuation of $337,000 and took in just over $14,000 in permit fees. We had 5 code enforcement cases that were submitted. We have 24 active cases, 1 open case. We issued 2 stop work orders, have a total of 56 unpermitted construction cases open, closed 1 case, and we took in 11 development applications and have 62 under review and approved 7. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Does anybody have any questions for staff? Yes, Mr. Blagden.
Thank you. It's not on here, but just because I saw her driving down Hacienda, there's a big political sign, looks like 4x8 or bigger, on Hacienda just before the corner of Avocado Crest. I think the city has a limit on the size of political signs. On open code cases, the last one, illicit septic discharge onto East Road. Was that onto the road or into the drainage course?
It's running onto the roadway, but ultimately makes its way to the drainage course.
And does the city automatically contact Board of Health on that?
We do put a notice into the health department for them to look at it, but a lot of times they won't come out unless it's like actively flowing, is when they will respond.
Was it a leak, or did they pump it out? Did it look like?
It looks like it's leaking out, so maybe a full tank that's leaking out.
All right. And did that was that before or after the road work was done?
We noticed it while we were doing the road work.
So did it interfere with the road work at all?
No.
And do you know if they cleaned that pipe that goes under their parking area?
We didn't clean the pipe that goes underneath that area during.
Oh, not the city, but that's the responsibility of the owner. Do you know they did?
No, they haven't cleaned that pipe.
All right, maybe they can do that when they fix the septic. All right, then on open cases, first page, 20-671, 341. Reposado has been lingering a while. There's a lot of stuff there they did. Meeting with staff, did you have any progress?
On the unpermitted construction or just code enforcement? Code enforcement.
That whole thing, house gutted and redone, new electric, plumbing, mechanical, new structures, new retaining wall, new garage.
On Reposado?
Yeah, 341. It's on the first page of open cases.
Yes. 341, we actually did just meet with the owner for that property, and they've had an issue with one of the heights of one of the walls and a location of a shed. So they're in the process of finalizing the plans to relocate and reduce those, and should be resubmitting. He said it within a week, but
So all those other things will go to being permitted or abated?
some of them have already been removed. The other are stuff that will get permitted through plan check.
All right, then on the next page, on the third page, the one on the top, 25, 394, 1945, Sharpless. This was kind of discussed last month, the unpermitted grading and retaining wall. I thought afterwards, don't you need to have a project in process to do grading and things?
So they were actually out doing their percolation test when they cut the slope to be able to get from one side of that property to the other side of the property. And that's what they were originally out there to do, was just to do the percolation test to be able to submit for a new house. So they were out doing their soils and perk test and then cut their way to the other side. That owner actually just resubmitted plans for repair today.
Okay, good. And then the last one of closed cases, unpermitted overheight fencing. I see on the approved plans, it was approved. How overheight?
They originally wanted an 8-foot fence, but that ultimately can be approved by the Planning Commission. So we'd given them that option, that they can come in and submit plans and come to the commission for an 8-foot fence. Ultimately, they chose to just reduce it to a 6-foot wrought iron fence.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Yes, Mr. Brooks.
Yeah, Rafferty, I was going to ask about that sign as well. It's more like 4 foot by 12 foot. Has our code enforcement officer seen it? I mean, that has to violate our sign regulations.
As far as I know, I don't believe, he hasn't mentioned anything to me about it, so we'll take a look at it. And
So can you do that, or do I need to like fill out a
no,
card about it?
we can take a look at it.
All right, great. That's all that I have.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas.
Yeah, Rafferty, one question. I don't see it on here, but you know the one house that's west of Hacienda had the 6-foot cinder block wall, and they went back and cut it down and put in the wrought iron. It's still cinder block, and there's no screening. Are they still doing something with that?
They're still in the process. We're after them right now they put a bunch of dirt in front of it. They need to remove that dirt down because it blocks some of the drainage that goes along to be able to go in and actually get it removed and put some screening in place.
Will they need to like stucco the cinder block wall or something else?
Right now, their plan is just to put some landscaping in front of it.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? Is there a motion to approve of the monthly Community Development Department status report for February 2026?
Move approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
And we'll take a vote then. Mr. Lucas?
Yes.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
I vote yes. Mr. Blagden?
Yes.
And Mr. Espinoza? Motion carries, and that is the end of the consent calendar. Moving on to the public hearing portion of today's meeting, agenda item number 7 is the tree replacement plan for the removal of protected trees without prior approval as part of the construction of a new residence located at 1730 Canola Road. And welcome back. Everybody's continued from December 9th, 2025, when we last discussed this issue. And can we have staff report, please?
Thank you, Chair Hess and Planning Commission. So the item before you tonight is a tree replacement plan. You last saw this project in December. At that time, the City Council had reviewed the plan and made the recommendation to send it to the Commission to have you review and make a recommendation back to the City Council. Because this project was ultimately approved by the City Council, it'll have to go back to the Council for approval. But the Council was looking for your expertise and knowledge to be able to review the landscape plan and the tree replacement and make a recommendation back up to them. So as we last looked at it in December, the applicant had submitted a revised landscaping plan, which in the package you have today is known as option 1. So option 1 is the plan that we looked at last time. At that time, the commission had provided some direction to the applicant to look at some additional trees at the lower portion of the property, moving some of the trees on the east side of the property in so they don't overhang onto the neighboring property. So the applicant went back and worked with our plan checker that does fuel modification for fire department to look at the placement of trees, the location of trees. So on the option 2 plan, which is the new plan, there is a slightly different configuration of trees. On the last plan, they were adding strawberry trees and a fruitless olive tree. On the new plan, it is still strawberry trees, but they have also changed the fruitless olive to a Victorian box tree, which is a slightly taller tree and a little bit of a larger tree. So those are the addition of the Victorian box is the new tree for this one. They also work to move the trees in along the east property line so the trees won't overhang the property and set them into the property. And as you can kind of see, we worked really closely because obviously we have to also meet fuel modification requirements for the city. So looking at the zones and tree spacing becomes a very important part of how trees are placed on property and how landscaping is reviewed today. And that's why landscape architect reviewed the plan 3 times with our plan checker to make sure that the location of the trees would comply with the requirements of fuel modification and separation. So all the trees are shown at maturity with a 10-foot separation between crowns, and they place the maximum. We are at the maximum amount of trees that we can place on this property to be able to stay within our fuel modification requirements. So they have maxed out, and they looked at, that was really what they looked at with the fire department landscaper, was to look at how we can add as many trees as possible, still meeting the requirements for fuel modification. And so ultimately that is option 2. So the biggest difference there is moving to a Victorian box from a fruitless olive. They took some of the commission's advice and pulled the trees in so they're not overhanging the neighbor's property, which was one of the concerns at our last meeting for there. I wanted to look at it yesterday, so on the wall over there, there's a little drawing. It's a little more rudimentary because I just did it quickly there, but I took the profile of the elevations, so the back of the house, elevation of the back of the house, and the east side of the house, and put them in relative of where they would fall in elevation on the property, because obviously this property does slope downhill from the street, so it's not flat and level, and looked at the landscaping plan and placed the tree locations along those elevations so you could sort of see where they fall at the appropriate elevation to where they would be based off of the grading plan for the property, because it's obviously not a flat plane and they're not all planted at the same level as the house. They're going to be down lower, especially the lower you go on the property. Elevation of the pad sits about 1010, and the lowest point of the property at the very southern edge is 987. So as you can kind of see on that, in red are the trees based off of the landscaping plan, where they would be located, the heights of them based off of what is in the height chart for the landscaping plan, all shown where they would be 6 feet from the ground. So obviously where the red canopy is shown on there in a box, it's not, that's not 30 feet if that tree is 30 feet tall. It incorporates 6 feet because all trees have to be limbed up at least 6 feet high to meet our fuel modification requirements. And that gives a little bit of a different representation as to how the trees would look, where they would be placed, and then in dashed lines behind it, you could see where the elevation of the house is. So that is sort of what you would be able to see from the back of the house, and along the east side of the property line, looking at the house, you would see where the trees fall in relative place in reality of the slope of the property. To kind of look at it, I myself wanted to just look at it that way. It's, the landscape architect has provided, an aerial view that shows the locations of the house and the properties surrounding the property where the trees are located, and some elevations to it. Those are all done to scale, so the large plans you have there show it at scale. But this was just me trying to look at it again to have a better understanding of what it looks like, to look at, make sure we could show it at 50%. We could get to our screening requirements that we need to be at and show that. So my recommendation for the Planning Commission is that you make a recommendation to the City Council to approve option 2 of the landscaping plan and have the trees installed prior to the sign off of the rough grading. So once rough grading is completed before any vertical construction starts, that's when the trees must be planted and irrigated. So they're in the ground growing while the house is under construction. Once the property is graded, you should be able to plant the plants on the property, so install the trees, get irrigation in, and still be able to work on it. There's a couple of trees I would say wait. There's a couple that are closer to the house. Those I would say should be planted at the end, but all the trees that are around the edge of the property could get installed now. Essentially, they're in the rough grading process today. That would be the recommendation I have for the commission. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you. The applicant is here as well, so if you have questions for the landscape architect, he's here to answer your questions as well. So, thanks.
Thank you. We're now going to open up for questions to staff and to the city attorney, if anybody has any, and we'll start with Mr. Brooks.
Well, I don't have any questions. I have some comments after public comment that I'd like to make as far as conditions of approval. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Mr. Lucas, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I just have one question to Rafferty. So you mentioned, staff recommends option 2 versus option 1, and you mentioned option 1 has some overhang of the trees, I think was one reason. But you look at option 1, so the 2 trees that show overhang, why couldn't those be moved towards the house? And if that was the case, if you move those towards the house, is your recommendation still option 2 over option 1?
The only reason I would say option 2 over option 1, option 1 those trees could be pulled in. They're relatively the same, similar size to it. The Victorian box is a little bit of a denser tree than the fruitless olive. Sometimes fruitless olives can be a little more see-through to them, but the Victorian box is a denser tree, so it'll provide a little more solid tree canopy for it. That would be really the only thing that I would say would be the reason I would recommend option 2 over option 1 is you get a little bit of a denser tree in the Victorian box. They're also slightly taller tree. They grow a little bit faster as well.
Any further questions, Mr. Lucas? Okay, thank you. Mr. Blagden.
Thank you. Thanks, Rafferty, for doing that. That's helpful. Good to have that to look at up front. Jim asked a question about your preference for option 2. What about option 2 with the same number of trees as option 1?
I'm sorry, Rafferty, just to interject, my understanding with what you said was option 2 has the biggest trees and the most amount of trees that they could put on to meet the fire code. Is that correct, or do they both do that?
The fruitless olive, back at the exact size of it, is a slightly smaller tree. Doesn't grow quite as tall as the Victorian box tree does. So that would be why you get a much taller tree, a little bit of a denser tree to it. They are a little bit different in size, which is part of the reason why.
The strawberry trees are the same size, though. All right, I'll move on to other questions. On elevation BB, I'm not sure if I see where the pool is.
On their plans?
Yeah, elevation BB. There's AA, which, well, I guess it would be the one, your top one.
Yeah, I was just looking at the mass of the structures, not the pool location.
Yeah, that wasn't talking about yours, I was talking about theirs, but I guess it applies to both. On the elevations in the plan set we got, it looks like the fence is semi-opaque. What is the fence?
Like we talked about last time, the fence along there are some existing trees, so we talked about requiring them to put a solid wall in. That potentially could impact what is remaining landscaping-wise along the property lines if you're adding fencing with footings to it. I believe it's going to be in the wrought iron category is what they have proposed.
Yeah, well, that's why I asked, because it's definitely not solid, and it's definitely not like chain link, so I was wondering what it was. One of the things mentioned in the Crab's letter was clearance at the retention basin, the setback of the trees and roots. Is that taken care of?
Yeah, the trees shouldn't impact the retention basin as the roots are going to go down. They shouldn't be any impact or relation to the retention basin.
And now what about the maintenance of the vegetation after it's in? Like, let's say it's to the point where it provides the privacy and screening, but it blocks the ling's view, which it will do at some point. What's the deal with, can they cut it, not cut it? How will that be enforced?
But as we look at all of our landscaping to it, it's one of those things where we would have to go back and look and keep track, which we haven't always done here as we look at landscaping that gets installed and planted. You know, there's not the staff to go back every year to reevaluate where tree locations are. One of the cities that I know that does that is Laguna Beach, but Laguna Beach tracks it for height and for view clearances. So neighbors can complain on other neighbors blocking their view, and they have a profile of where the trees lie at a certain time point and have to keep them trimmed to that.
So the same would apply to replacing dead trees, whether they're dead from lack of water or dead from they timed out, they reached the end of their life?
As the commission and council have both discussed the potential for requiring a bond for the trees. So we have
Would that be a permanent bond?
a bond. A bond for imagine a period of time. Our auditors hate when we hold bonds for too long, but
Yeah, well, I had mentioned about having a recorded requirement on the property that the trees be maintained to such a level and they maintained for health, because the bond, as you said, times out, whereas with the recorded condition, then each successive owner will know their responsibility, and the next owner of the Crab's house will know that they are entitled to have that privacy and screening. Then, yeah, the strawberry trees, looks like they have a different symbol. The symbol in the legend is different than the symbol on the plans. I'm assuming they're strawberry trees. It's like a open diamond, where the one on the legend is a solid diamond. And now with the retention basin, we had the January storm was 4 inches of rain, which is 55,000 gallons, 0.6 gallons per square foot of hardscape. And then after that we had another 2 inches. Was that retention basin size, so that it's not going to be a problem?
so as we did with the original plan, the city council's required additional sizing to the retention basin, so it's greater than what would be required. All that's required for stormwater requirement is catching 85% of an 85th percentile storm. That falls within a 24-hour period. The council did condition the property to have a larger catch basin to be able to accommodate a greater amount of water.
But the code also says that runoff past the initial amount is to be distributed across the property in a manner similar to the pre-development condition, which they're not doing. So that's why I'm asking about, is the retention basin going to be able to make that up and protect the downstream neighbors?
Like I said, I'm not a hydraulic engineer. I don't know how much it would be. I can't look at and know exactly what it would be and that it could accommodate all scenarios.
Yeah, that's the math that doesn't look too promising. So what's the story if the retention basin overflows a couple of times a year and dumps into the downstream neighbors? It's not doing its job.
Rafferty, we're here to approve the landscape plan. The retention basin is part of the LID plan that the civil engineer is going to do. None of us are here engineers, so discussing this isn't really part of the landscape plan.
Well, some of it, I was just
It's
about...
not part of the landscape plan. We're here to approve the landscape plan.
It's on the landscape plan.
It's on it, but that doesn't mean we have any authority over it. It's
All right,
done.
I was done.
Stephen, you have to
talking about
understand.
it.
Stephen, you need to understand the process. That is engineered and designed by a civil engineer, and it's called an LID, low impact development, and they engineer it and design it, and there's specifications that it has to meet with the multiplier that we've already put on it. So to spend time discussing this, there's nothing we can do. As Rafferty just said, he's not an engineer. We don't know whether these numbers are going to work. So let's move on about the plants, the trees,
Yeah,
the
I
views,
was
those.
ready to move on, and you spent more time talking about what I was
Well,
asking about than I asked about it.
Well, that's because I've had you go on for half an hour on subjects that are irrelevant.
I don't
This
talk
is
that
one.
long. It's relevant to me. Then speaking of, the fire department has their requirements, and one of them was the fire flow. And there were 4 measurements over 20 years the water district did, and the fire flow was 50%
Well,
shot.
again, Mr. Blagden, we're here to approve the plan. We're either going to approve it, deny it, or with modifications. The water flow plan has nothing to do with us tonight. There's nothing we can do. It's up to the fire department. That's all in plan check.
No, it goes to the council.
Then
before
let
the
it go to the
building
council,
permits.
but we have no authority on that. Tonight, correct me if I'm wrong, Rafferty, we are here to either approve this landscape plan, deny it, or ask for recommendations, or approve it with conditions. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so let's just stay on topic.
All right, well, if I see something that's has a nexus,
It
I'll
has
ask a
nothing to
question.
do with the landscape plan, and that's what
All
we're
right,
here for.
well, let me finish my questions. You're wasting time, that you're saying I'm wasting time. The silt tree, the one up at the corner by the street, the neighbor was concerned that it would might get into their power lines. Can that tree be moved or something so that wouldn't be a problem in the future?
Or you can recommend they replace it with a different tree.
We see the, okay, I'll do the question for the city attorney. I don't know if you've had Joe, time to review the relevant codes, but we have 2 types of landscaping. One is landscaping for new development, which it's 71240, which requires a minimum 50% screening after 5 years. And then this case here is one of a tree removal. And the tree removal says the tree replacement shall consist of trees of sufficient number and size so that the neighborhood character, views, and privacy are restored or enhanced. And that it has no time factor mentioned. So to me, just the strict reading of the language means that views and privacies are restored at the time that the trees are planted. The other one gives 5 years. This one has no time number on it.
Is there a question, or we're not doing comments at this point? We're
Yeah, no,
just
it's a
asking
question. So the question is, does it need to restore their privacy upon completion of the plantings, since there is no time number mentioned, or what?
My interpretation of this code provision would be that it allows for growth over time of these trees. I don't think there's any expectation in terms of the tree being fully mature at the time of planting. And so I think there are estimates of what, these types of trees how tall they would grow over time and what what the height of a mature tree would be. And so I don't believe that the code should be interpreted to mean that the trees need to be mature at the time of planting.
All right, but my question wasn't that they're mature, but they're tall enough to serve the purpose of the code, which is to restore or enhance. And they might grow more after that, but at the time it's done, the restoration will be completed.
I think the way I would think about it is there are certain practical realities in terms of, how tall the trees can be when they're planted, and I think the spirit of my previous answer stands, where it doesn't have to be fully screened at the time of planting.
All right, thank you. And that's my next question then is, how tall will these trees be when they are planted above the ground? All of the box and the strawberry.
That might be a better answer for the landscape architect than I could tell you at planting size.
Do you think that there's an indication on the legend that says approximately what the height?
No, it tells the mature height and width, but not as planted. Yeah, then another thing I noticed, the Crab's letter about the Pittosporum, where the plan shows 9, the crabs say there's 2. I know when I was there, I took a picture and I looked at it after I got their letter, and there don't seem to be the 2 Pittosporum on that driveway side, the east side of the property. Do you remember seeing them?
The 2 that are in the lower corner before the line curves?
No, they're up right about where the ADU is.
We have walked and looked at them. They are more of a shrub shape today than mature trees. Obviously, there was a larger mature tree that was above those existing trees. Those 2 that are there are shown on the plans.
All right, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Espinoza. I do have just a couple questions. The Rafferty, the screening elevation that you prepared, is that for option number 2?
That's based off option number 2.
Is there, I know that your screening elevation and the emails that we received from the homeowners and the neighbors, those weren't part of the original packet that we received, but were submitted to us afterwards. Because they were reviewed by us and considered this evening, I would like them to be included as part of the official record and also be submitted to City Council if we make any recommendations to City Council. Is that possible?
Sure.
Thank you. And then I also wanted to make sure I have the verbiage right of what your recommendation is to us tonight. You're recommending that we as a planning commission recommend to City Council that we approve of option number 2 and then have a sign off of the tree planting. I think you said it was prior to rough grading. Is that correct?
Yeah, prior to the completion of rough grading.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to open it up for the public hearing portion of tonight, and I'm going to start with Ken Parsons, architect. Each speaker will have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Commission. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'm going to just take a couple seconds because I'm not the primary point here. Our landscape architect's here. I'm sure he'll have a lot more pertinent information than I will. I'm just hoping that we can move this forward this evening so that my clients can get on with the process of completing their project. But if there are any specific questions that relate to the architecture of the project, which I don't think there will be, because this is pertaining to the landscape, I am here to answer those. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Carl Garcia, landscape architect. You have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you very much. Yes, as landscape architect, I've been here at this podium many times in front of all of you, and here we are yet again. So thank you all for helping us through this process, which has been very interesting, to say the least. After our last meeting, we took your considerations to heart. We made the changes, and we added that second option, the option 2, which Rafferty has mentioned that he's recommending for approval. Both the options 1 and 2 went to the city's fire plan checker, Sean Fraley, with Wildan. He approved both of those concepts. So if there's any questions or doubts, both those concepts are acceptable to the fire department. That's kind of the biggest issue with this whole screening topic that we're talking about here, is it's not that we don't want to add more trees. I would love to. I mean, if I could, just to satisfy everybody here, I would just do a row of cypress trees and be done with it, right? We can't do that. We have a lot of fire issues to contend with. So what you're seeing here in option 2 is basically larger trees, and of course, if we go bigger, we have to have less. I heard a question from Commissioner Bladgen earlier that can we add more trees to option 2? The short answer is no, because we have those larger, the Pittosporum undulatum, the Victorian box trees. Much faster growing, much larger, much denser, as Rafferty mentioned. And that was on purpose, because we're trying to address a screening issue that needs to be done as quickly as possible. Now also, in addition to that, the size day one of planting is going to be a 60-inch box tree. That's a huge tree to going in. Not only is it expensive, there's going to be cranes that are involved in getting this in. The height of that tree, day one, is going to be between 12 and 18 feet tall, and the width is going to be between 16 to 20 feet tall. Again, these are living organisms, so they're all varying in size, but approximately those are the sizes that are going in. We're taking that into consideration. We want to help remedy this situation. So here we are. Based on what we're able to do from the fire department with the fire code to satisfy everybody here as much as possible, option 2 is also, I'm in agreement with, it's the best option. It gives us a good planting, dense planting. We're able to stagger it. It's off the property line like everybody's mentioned, even though on option 1, we could move those trees off the property line and still be okay. As far as the basin's concerned, the roots do not encroach. It's an infiltration basin, so water is going to be percolating down into the soil. It's not going to be holding it for any long period of time. So roots tend not to clog up basins. They actually help the basin drain because the plant actually uptakes the water. Anyways, all that being said, these plans all comply with the city standards, with the fire standards, and with all of the recommendations that the commission here has set forth. So all I can say is we've done everything we could to help satisfy every condition that's been presented to us. So if you have any questions for me, I'm more than happy to answer them. I'm here all night. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. The next card I have is, yes. Could you come back, please? Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, you said the box trees, the 60-inch box on the boxwood is 12 to 18 feet tall. And what was the width?
It's not a boxwood, it's a Victorian box.
Okay.
Boxwood is a little tiny shrub. A Victorian box is a large tree, and it's going to be approximately 16 to 18 feet in height the day it's installed, and between 12 and 20 feet in width. And again, those are approximations. You know, they're living organisms. So.
And then what about the strawberry trees?
The strawberry trees, slightly smaller tree, but again, it's a 60-inch box tree, so those are field grown. Those are about approximately 10 to 12-year-old trees already, so they're quite large.
The strawberry, I think, a 36-inch box.
Correct.
So how tall will they be when they're planted?
Again, approximately a 36-inch box tree, I'm going to say 10 to 12 feet tall maybe, and then width is going to be between 8 and 15.
Now, I know when you go to the nursery, I don't know if you hand pick them or you solder them, but depending how long they've been around, you can get different heights. So can you pick the tallest ones?
Exactly. I mean, it's really depending on who's chosen as the grower, how long they've been growing, demand for the trees, so on and so forth, you know.
So you try and choose the tall ones?
Well, obviously, we'd want to go with the largest, yes.
And then I asked about the silk tree and possible future interference with the power lines, and Rafferty said to ask you about if you can replace it with a tree that won't
I mean,
interfere.
I don't know why the issue with the silk tree keeps coming up. Honestly, it's not a large tree. It's actually about 15 feet tall at maturity. So it's not going to be in the way of the power lines. It's got about a 24 to 25 foot crown, the width of the tree. Again, not going to be encroaching on anything. The only potential concern is one of invasiveness, but that's only if they're out in areas that aren't maintained. The seed pods will take root and grow. Otherwise, anybody that has a standard maintenance routine, gardeners that come in and mow and blow and weed eat, it's not going to be an issue. So again, that one has always been confusing to me because really it's a beautiful tree, especially as an entry statement along the street. I don't understand that one.
All right, 15 feet isn't too tall. All right, thank you.
Oh, excuse me, while you're up, I have a couple questions. It just kind of came up. Thank you.
Sure thing.
When you say the height of the tree is 10 feet, 12 feet, is that from the dirt level up, or is that including the box? In other words, there's times when trees, 60-inch boxes, 4 feet or 5 feet off the ground as well, right? So is that including that, and then it goes in the ground and you lose that? Or when you say those elevations, is that when it arrives from the ground up or after it's in the ground?
That is the exposed height after planting. So from the soil level to the top of the crown after it's planted in the dirt.
Okay. And then who will actually select these trees? Will that be you, or is that the landscaper, whoever's going to install them, or what control do we have, or can we dictate to make sure that, contractors have a way of taking the path of least resistance? So to put in a 20-foot wide tree, I don't know how you'd even ship that. You'd have, even if you tied it, but, so what control is there to determine, because I don't want your words coming back to haunt you here, that they're going to select trees that are in that kind of range?
Well, a couple things we could do. We could put, obviously, a note on the plans is the easiest. That sets the parameter and the standard for what we are looking for. Certainly, I'm not opposed to going out and tagging trees. I've done it in the past. Again, that would be, if that's your recommendation, I would have to just coordinate that with the owners. And yeah, I can certainly do that. Third option is we just notify whoever is chosen as the nursery that's going to be providing these materials that we want those set parameters, and that they would have to comply with that. Now, additionally, and it happens on occasion, when the trees are delivered, I get called out on site to inspect the trees as opposed to going out and picking them individually. But when they arrive on site, I can reject trees also. So that's a fourth option.
Well, okay. So I think it's probably in the Lings and everybody concerned to have them selected by a professional, which, I would refer back to you, rather than the contractor who's going to dig the holes and drop them in the ground. So
It's perfectly fine.
okay. All right, and to try to put minimum dimensions on the plans, a 60-inch box tree should be X high by X wide. At the time you buy it, I don't see that there could be a problem with finding that tree with those dimensions. So I'm going to probably request, a condition that you be the one that select the trees and tag them before they're shipped, rather than getting them there and rejecting them and going through all that. So
Exactly. I mean, again, these are living organisms, and depending on the demand, it's hard to say exactly what's going to be grown and available to us at the time of installation. So that's why it's kind of a ballpark number, between this and that. So
well, I see that some of the the grading is already going on. So do the nurseries, these are big nurseries, this isn't Armstrong's obviously that you go to, do they have a problem with you going and tagging a tree even if it sits there for 6 or 8 weeks or 2 months?
no, that's not a problem.
Okay, so then perhaps that could be the plan, to do that if and when this gets approved.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
And I don't know that it's going to get approved, but I think that I'm trying to put as much in everybody's favor to make sure that it's followed as possible. So
Yeah, absolutely.
anyway, those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One more.
Any other questions before I step down?
Before we go back to you, is there anybody else that has any further questions of
Yeah, I just have one
landscape
follow-up
architect.
question.
Go ahead, Mr. Lucas.
So based on the Victorian box tree and the strawberry tree, after 5 years, what's your projected height after 5 years, just based on your expertise?
I mean, when we design these things, we use, as an industry standard, 5 years maturity. And again, there's a lot of factors that go into that. It's soil condition, fertilization, watering. Like this year, we've had an extremely warm winter, for example, so that can actually help plants grow quicker. It's like an early spring sort of thing. So based on site conditions. But in general, we can expect, an additional, I would say, don't hold me to this again because there's a lot of factors, but, at 5 years from the day of planting, the 60-inch box tree is going to be probably about 5 to 10, let's say, feet taller than what it's at, whereas the 36-inch box tree is going to be 10 to 20 feet taller. So it's kind of one of those funny anomalies that, a 15-gallon tree and a 60-inch box tree planted at the same time, the 15-gallon tree in 5 years will be the exact same size as the 60-inch box tree. So I don't know if that answers your question, sorry.
Yeah, I think so. And last question, based on your experience, what percent of trees that you plant this size, for whatever reason, don't make it to full maturity?
That's a great question.
Is it 5%, 1%?
Probably about 35%. It's very high, yeah. Because there's a lot of stress and a lot of damage that happens to a large tree like that. The root system obviously is the stability and also the feeding source for the tree. And as soon as you cut it out and move it somewhere, it has a lot of work to do to reestablish itself. So
that's a lot higher than I thought it would be. So this goes back to the bond, where if you're planting this many trees, chances are a few of them aren't going to make it.
There's a very high possibility. And we just got to do everything we can to make sure that doesn't happen. Fertilize it, feed it, water it, care for it. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Mr. Espinoza.
There's a guarantee on the nurseries. Usually it's a 1 year, 12-month guarantee. After that, it's hard to say.
Rafferty, as far as could we make it a condition of approval that any trees that don't survive within the first 5 years be replaced?
And that's where the bond would come into place as well. So there's a mechanism there. If they don't do it, there is a pot of money available. Also too, landscaping and field modification is the very last step in the process for construction. So it is right before Michael will sign off on the building, landscaping and field modification is looked at. So at that time, it's going to have to, all the trees will have to be planted. They'll all have to be alive. They'll all have to be living. So I figure if we do it now, construction is going to be 2 years. 2 years of construction. So you figure there's a couple of years through construction where the tree is going to be growing before we get to that point where we would even get to sign offs for landscaping. So typically, they're usually the last thing that goes in, but here we're having them go in early, so they got to survive all the way through construction, and it's one of the very last sign offs before Michael finals the building and gives certificate of occupancy.
Mr. Blagden.
All right, thank you. Your spec on the silk tree was 25 feet tall on the plan.
Correct.
You said 15.
15 feet wide by 20 to 25 feet tall.
All right, so 25 feet might be a problem with the power
Not
lines.
under power pole.
No?
Power poles are 50 feet tall.
But I think the ones going to, I guess they can speak to that.
Yeah, I haven't measured it, to be honest with you, but a standard power pole is approximately 30 to 50 feet tall. So I wouldn't have planted it there knowing that it would have been an issue. These are considered small trees. But again, if it's something that's really a concern, then you guys can condition it to be replaced. Ultimately, this comes down to you guys. So I'm just trying to do what I can to help move this along.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks.
One more question. Mr. Garcia, I don't see it on the plans, but are you going to have on the plans some planting specifications? In other words, if it's a 60-inch box tree, they need to dig a 12-foot diameter hole that's 5 feet deep and backfill it with organic material or a mix of organic and whatever the soil is. so that the guy doesn't dig a 5-foot by 5-foot hole and just stick the tree in there. Will there be some specifications on the plan as to how to actually plant these trees?
So what you're seeing here is the vegetation fuel management plan, or fuel modification plan. As I mentioned last time I was in front of this commission, these plans are for the fire department approval, which guides everything that we do in terms of the landscape construction plans. It is currently in the construction phase technically. So the plans that are actually developed and they're going to be built off of, that the city has already approved, minus these changes obviously, is just that. They have the details, the specifications, it has all of the notations and direction for the contractor to install landscaping, has the irrigation plans, construction hardscape plans, all of that. So that's what you're not seeing here because, again, fire dictates what we're able to do.
I understand. So is your answer yes, then you will have, on the other plan, the actual landscape plan will have a specification as to what size hole has to be dug for each size tree so that whoever the contractor is knows that that's what he's supposed to do to plant that tree?
That is correct, actually.
Okay.
Those plans, like I said, we modified based on what is approved eventually
Right.
what's in front of you. So those plans have already been done, and we're going to have to do an amendment to those plans based on whatever gets approved here by this commission and the council.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I think we're good. We're done with the questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Garcia, thank
Right.
you so much. I appreciate it. And the next public speaker card we've received has two individuals listed on it, Robert and Joyce Ling. Would you both like to speak, or just one of you?
I actually don't have much to say. I just want to thank you all for your time here. I know that you guys have spent a lot of time on this project, so your time to spend for us is appreciated. Regarding the trees, Rick, usually we hire contractors who are specialized in planting because the nursery also, in their interest, to make sure that they survive because those trees are very expensive. They're under warranty, so we'll make sure that proper contractor will bring their heavy equipment to dig a proper size hole, and also with the nutrients and the irrigation and everything's checked out before they drop it. So to assure you that hopefully we'll survive. But also we have to understand that the land on my lot is actually very clayish. So when the soil is rock solid, so we have to add a lot of nutrients. And it may not grow as fast as in places like West Covina or something where they have loose soil. So to answer your question, Mr. Lucas, it may not probably grow as healthily, as fast as in the San Gabriel area, but it will probably grow. Yeah.
We never know what nature will do to plants or trees, right? So I guess how can we make that assurance in terms of growth and size and how tall it will be and all that? I guess our expert, Carl, and the tree experts from the nurseries should be able to assist us in that. So that, but there's no guarantee for that. And I think to impose bonds on those things, is that something that sounds logical? I mean, for homeowners, because we are dealing with nature, so I don't know. Every time we have this hearing, we always have requests from the crabs to always impose bonds on landscape, on this and that. So I need your consideration about this issue of bonds. We have gone a long way in our journey, you know. 9 years is a very long time, and we have tried our best to remedy the situation. I guess we have done our due diligence to redo the architect drawing, and now it's the landscape to remedy the situation of the tree that were cut by, actually not by our order. I guess if you read the letter from our neighbor across the street, he finally, I guess he admitted that he was the one who ordered the tree cutter to cut those trees.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
Regarding the trees that were cut, Cameron across the street, 1737, he told me that tree is to the right of the house. Those 3 trees that were cut actually offer no privacy at all for that house. But yet we are made to plant so many more trees because there are 3 trees. But originally, those 3 trees did not provide them privacy at all because it's to the right of the house. It's not right in front of their house. I just want to make that clear.
We need to maintain some order too and just have one person speak and then finish their comments and then move to the other one. It gets a little confusing for the record if you are going back and forth.
I see.
So
Okay.
just one at a time, please. Go ahead, Mrs. Ling.
Okay, I'm done.
I suppose, well, we just hope that we can come up with a good solution tonight. I guess not to go into the nitty-gritty that was presented by the crabs. You know, these are all, I believe, an experts has to be answered by experts in plant trees and sizes and all of these items that was mentioned over here. So we are trying our best already for all this last 9 years to remedy the situation. And we are hoping that we can come up with a good solution this evening and go with your recommendation. And hopefully we can start building our house. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you all again.
Thank you. Does anybody have questions for the Lings before they leave? No, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Our next speaker card is from Carol Crabb.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for your time. I know this is just a never-ending project. I didn't think that I would have to show pictures from before, but I'm going to go into my letter and some questions. But you said that the pittosporum are there. They're just not so big. You want to go on record saying those trees are there?
They are not in the shape of a tree. They're more of a shrub today.
A, there is no pittosporum there, and B, show me on this picture where exactly those trees are.
We need to maintain order, and it's not really a question and answer between you and city staff at this point. It's for you to make public comment.
This is a huge issue, though, that these records are false, that these trees are there when they're not. Those trees provide shade, screening, but they're not there. If they acknowledge that they're not there, then they have to provide screening there. So it is a big issue. It's a huge issue that you're saying that trees are there that really are not there. I'm flabbergasted at that. You guys, I don't know. I don't know if all of you went to the site recently. If any of you saw those trees there, I'm at a loss. And again, Mrs. Ling mentioned that she read my letter. Can I have a copy of the Ling's letter?
It's a letter from the neighbor.
It's a letter from the neighbor?
you'd like some time to review the letter and then come back, you certainly can. At this point, we're just here to talk about.
Not signed or notarized, so they
Yeah,
could have made
this
it up.
isn't
Who knows?
verified, is it?
At this point, we're just here to receive
Okay.
comments from the public
Okay,
about the
more
about the proposed tree restoration.
Sorry, just more
So,
questionable.
it's okay.
Questionable information that we didn't have time to review. So again, it's one-sided a lot of the times. Okay, so we do have a big problem that these plans still do not acknowledge that 7, for lack of, for lack of actually all of the trees, but for argument's sake, we'll go with 7 trees that were destroyed, that they're still not being acknowledged, that there's still only 4 being acknowledged, which makes a huge difference with this plan. And like I said, conveniently, 2 of those 3 that they're still not acknowledging would provide screening that they're really not there. Neither one of these plans protect or enhance the neighborhood character, privacy, and views. The whole point of protecting those original 9 trees was to maintain neighborhood character, privacy, and visual screening, as you mentioned. We don't have any screening on our side. And yet they want to plant more pittosporum on the west side, even though there's much thicker vegetation left on that side between them and the neighbor, and our side is barren. No character, no trees. And the fact that you mentioned there's no way to add additional trees, that this is the most that we can put on this site, that's not true. That's only if the house remains as is. If the dynamics of all that were less, there would be room for more trees. As far as the silk tree goes, it's convenient that they on the plan say one thing, then they say another thing. It's 25 feet, it's 15, it's whatever's convenient for the conversation. The pipes to the basin should be on the plan, not omitted, so that you can see how those line up to these tree roots. Just like sewer lines and so forth, you don't generally plant trees above sewer lines, plumbing and so forth. There's a reason for that. And we talked to our landscape contractor, our landscape architect, and we asked him about these trees, these Victorian box trees. What vendor are you using to get these 60-inch Victorian box trees?
We're not
Okay.
open for questions.
Okay. Well, I think that's something that should be looked at, because our architect says that good luck finding those trees. There's no demand for those trees. They used to be growing everywhere rampant in the 40s and 50s, and then they died off in the 90s. He said good luck finding those. So if we're going to put on paper that we're going to find something and put it in, that good luck getting your hands on, that's a problem. And yeah, if they can't produce what they're saying on this paper, then what? What becomes of this project? You know, they're saying that they can put these in. What if they can't? Then do we have to go back to start this whole process all over again and just keep kicking the can down the line? I don't know. I'm really, really disappointed. Also, on some of these drawings, I showed you in what I sent to you, that on the drawings, if you look at where they line up with one elevation, there's no way they're going to screen the whole house, especially right off the bat. So it's just putting on paper what you want to see or what you want to hear to get the thing to get pushed through, and this is just really disappointing. Do you have any questions about my letter or what you saw when you were at the site, if you went to the site?
Does anybody have any questions for Mrs. Crabbe?
I just had one either for you or for James about the power pole and the power lines. The landscape architect said that the utility poles are usually 50 feet tall, which is true. but I don't know if you have a drop pole like at the top of your driveway that's down lower that makes the silk tree a problem.
Well, it comes right in there. Let's see if I have any of the pictures on here.
We're not, you can't answer questions from the back, I'm sorry. But when you come up and you want to address it during your public comment, you can do so.
Well, in some of my pictures, you can see where the power lines are. I don't know if you want me to bring this forward or not, but it's kind of hard to see, but. Do you want me to bring it forward? Do you see, it was in the packet that was presented months ago.
Maybe you could submit it over to staff.
Or can you put this on the screen? Can you, or no? I don't know how that works. No, okay.
Oh, I'll come get it.
Do you want me to?
Or maybe you could. Well, yeah, it has to be comments through the microphone, otherwise it won't be part of the official record. But if you would like to distribute the photographs and we can look at them while you're talking, then that would be acceptable.
This packet was originally, it's just not resubmitted.
They are part of the original record from the December 9th, 2025 meeting, so they will be part of the record. Is there anything you wanted to point out as far as answering the question that was presented to you?
Well, some of the pictures, I mean, you have to look closely. It's faint on some where the lines are, but you can see the lines. I can't say offhand what the height is, but I'm sorry. Any other questions or?
Does anybody else have questions for Mrs. Crabb before she sits down? Thank you. We'll make sure that this gets back to you too, but in the meantime, we'll have Mr. James Crabb please come forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. Yeah, we're both a little befuddled at this option 2 thing because most of my comments were regarding option 1 because when I wrote for option 2 that I don't even want to talk about it. It was a joke. Purple hop bush, dwarf bamboo. Dwarf bamboo is 2 feet high. How is that screening anything? The hop bush, purple hop bush grows maybe 7-8 feet, only grows for about 7 years, has a short lifespan, then dies, or tips over because they're top heavy. But anyway, hopefully everyone got to go to the site to see the massive pad that's there that's about 10 feet high above our property now. So you come out the front door and you look at, oh, a giant pad. Wonderful. Yeah, planting trees under the power lines, you're either going to have to top them, trim them all the time, and they're going to wind up on our property, which creates a nuisance, which is in the findings. 7.12.60 prohibits landscaping designs that result in nuisance conditions. So let's not do that. They're also a fire hazard. They're also invasive species. It's a plant that in some cities they just say no to. Regarding this may have to go somewhere else, but regarding, since the grading is going on and this pad is so high, and there's no more trees left, all the dust is blowing on our cars. The pad's above the fence, okay? So there's no dust control, there's no sound attenuating. That thing rattles and bonks and it all comes into our house. And I know some of it's part of construction, I get it, but the tractor and things sit 10 feet above us now. So the house is going to sit 40, 50 feet above us. I'm not quite sure exactly how high this house is going to be. Big mistake, this thing. Bonds, yeah. To her question, they haven't done anything for years. So that's just, as Rick said at one of the meetings, they've been a bad neighbor, and that's it. We've maintained our property. Others have. Theirs fell into disrepair. So, yeah, put a bond on it. Make sure they're doing it. Another great question is, fine, you put all the giant trees in, and so 35% die. Now, you had to crane them in to get there. How are you going to crane over the big house? a bigger crane, maybe it doesn't fit on the street. Then they come with you, oh, this wasn't our fault either. Oh, it's somebody else's fault, just like all their other excuses over the years. And back to the 4 trees were removed. You know, they started with 1. The bamboozling here is just unbelievable. They started with 1. He agreed there was 1. Now it's up to 4. There's really like 9 or 12 that are gone. And even he said, the landscape guy said at one of the meetings, maybe it was the last one, the ones that are left on the east side aren't viable. So why are we, there's a couple sticks and there's a diseased, can't think of the logo, hell, I can't remember what the name of it is. A little fruit tree. This whole thing is just, like I said, we're just befuddled with what's going on here. I'm not even talking option 2. Anyway, yeah, back to what one of the commissioners said about, hey, the 7, 12, 40, 50, restore or enhance. We're not really getting that, especially if you're putting in dwarf bamboo that's 18 inches high and hot bushes that die in 7 years. How about accurate plans? How about be concerned about the neighbors that are there? You know, nothing's been said. Now, they don't have to. But years have gone by, all the nonsense that have gone on, all the stuff, oh, the trees got knocked down. Never have we had from them, oops, sorry about that. Oops, how about a letter? How about a phone call? How about, they don't have to come in person, but nothing. It's just been, hey, what can they get? What can they get past the city? And like my wife said, they'll tell you anything you want here. Maybe it's a 12-foot high tree, maybe it's 25 feet high tree, whatever. So anyway, thank you for listening.
Thank you. We are going to close public comments unless there's any more questions for Mr. Crabb. I'm not going to open it up for anybody else, but if there's a question for Mr. Crabb, then okay, there are no questions for Mr. Crabb, so we're going to close public comments at this time and now open it up for discussion amongst the commissioners. And I'm going to start with Mr. Lucas. Do you have any comments that you would like to make about this?
Yeah, I think I appreciate everyone's comments and different views on the situation. Unfortunately, it's going to be difficult to please everyone based on what's happened over the years. I've only been involved for the last year. I know it's been going on for a long time. So, you know, I think some of the things that were brought up that need to be addressed is, you know, if there aren't plants, if some of these trees aren't available and they're not going to meet what's shown here, it needs to come back to us with the revised tree plan that they're going to plant if something does change on there, potentially. I think we heard about some of that silk tree in the upper northeast corner, whether it's 15 feet high, 25 feet high, how high the wires are, we're not quite sure, but you'll potentially look to replace that as well. And then we talked about the bond. If there's 18 trees looking to be replaced and a third of them on average don't make it, that's a pretty costly potential replacement plan. So making sure the bond is large enough to handle that situation. Let's see, what else? And then I guess the one question I still have after hearing the comments is there's 2 existing, whether they're shrubs or they're not there. You know, it seems like could there be a new tree placed there? You know, that's a larger height that still maintains a distance from the house. And again, if that is the case, then maybe add something there to provide some additional screening. So those are kind of the 4 things that came up hearing the different comments from both parties.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Chair Hess. I'll try to make this as short and sweet as possible. We're here tonight because there was an approved landscape plan, and on that plan they were supposed to remove a bunch of trees, and some trees were supposed to stay. And I believe there was 2 or 3 that were down lower on the property that got cut out that the neighbor claims that he asked the landscaper to do, and there was one that the Lings admitted to that was along the driveway. I've seen this project at least 10 times over the last 5 years, and quite honestly, when the plan wasn't followed, I was ready just to reject the whole project, and if you're not going to follow the plan, Mr. Ling, you know, don't build the house. But as I looked at it, I said, okay, what was the impact of those trees being removed? And the 3 trees that were removed down at the very point of the property, the Crab's house is here, the Ling's house will be there, and they are over here. They really have no impact on the screening of the house. So while it's frustrating, it really doesn't have impact on the house and the views. The one along the driveway, again, driving up and down the driveway or the property to the east of it, that tree no doubt will affect their view, but I think it's been replaced with these other trees. So the impact of the 4 trees that were removed that were not supposed to be removed, I think is a moot point at this point. There's argument about it shows trees here that aren't there, and I don't even think that we need to get into that tonight, because if it shows that it's on the plan, they need to be there when the grading's done, or it's not going to get signed off. So I don't see any reason to hold it up to go verify if something's there or not there. If it's on the plan, it needs to be done at that time. I've heard over and over again about all these trees that were removed, and the original plans showed many trees being removed. And I think that there's some confusion there that those trees were planned on being removed. And so with that being said, I would most likely move to approve the option 2 plan with a few conditions here. Number 1 is on the landscape plan, I would want to condition it that all the trees have an XY coordinate with dimensions so that these trees go in exactly where they are on the plan. So the approved landscape plan, Rafferty, would have to have dimensions from some point, you know, to know where these are and where they belong, because right now it's just going to be a dirt lot, and to try to go, oh, I think it's going to be here, you know, that's not going to cut it. This is such a high profile, there's so much going on with this. I don't want to hear any excuses for mistakes. So I would personally, whatever motion, if it is made to approve this, want to have that as a condition. I would also have the location verified by a civil engineer, meaning that a survey team would go out there and physically survey where these trees belong, stake them, and make sure that that's where they get planted. I would like to have the trees verified by an independent landscape architect that the proper trees and the proper size were planted in the locations. Just nothing against Mr. Garcia, just that it's always better to have a third-party verification. Then we know that quality control has been kept and everything is being done by the plan. And I would also condition it that the trees be selected by Garcia and Associates, that the trees be selected, tagged, and purchased before the landscape plan is submitted and approved. So there won't be any excuses to say, oh, well, we put that on the tree, on the plan, but now we can't find one that big. you know, I'm just being straight up with you, Mr. and Mrs. Ling. If this project comes back for non-conformance, I'm going to vote it down and start all over from scratch and build a one-story house 16 feet high. So I want you to understand I'm really serious that I don't want to see this plan back again, and I want you guys to follow the plan to the T. And I'm trying to protect you with these, not make it harder, okay? So those would be the 4 conditions that I would like to see on the plans. I don't see how they could add any more trees because of the fire code. The little bushes that are on here, that's part of the fire code, so that's not worth me talking about. Based on the elevations that I've seen that Rafferty provided and the section views that they showed don't really show me true section lines, so I have to kind of go by judgment on that. But I feel that there's been enough representation that it does meet the 50% screening, which is the minimum for the plan, and that this already meets the fire code, so we don't have to worry about it being changed when it gets to the fire department. And lastly, there was one other point, so as I looked at an elevation plan there, and I looked at this and the elevations, and I've heard before that, you know, this house is going to tower over us, and I just heard, you know, Mr. Krabs saying, oh, the tractor's, you know, towering over us. Well, unfortunately, I'm a math guy, and their house is about 120 feet roughly to the Ling's house. And the elevations that I looked at from the point down here was 987.
Sir, we're not, this is not open for public comment at this point.
You haven't even heard what I had to say, so then okay, this isn't open for comment anymore. So my point is to the rest of the counselors that it's 53 feet is roughly above the Krabs grade, or the lowest part of the grade, to the top of the house. So 53 feet rise over 120 feet is about a 20-degree slope. In other words, 45 degrees would be 130 degrees out, and 130 feet out, and 130 feet up would be a 45-degree plane. Does that make sense to everybody? I'm just trying to do some simple math. I do math all the time. This is going to be less than half of that, so it's about a 20-degree plane. So I feel like the elevation views are showing level, and as you look up, there's going to be more coverage because you're looking up at the trees rather than straight view at them, if that makes sense, what I'm trying to say. In my house, I have a slope in the front, and I have about 6 feet high of bougainvillea that runs along, you know, the street, and from the street you can't see any part of my house, and my house is 40 feet above the street and 20-some feet high above that. So at a 6-foot plane risen, you can't see any part of the house. So I feel like the trees are going to cover the 50% screenage, and that's the reason that I would vote to approve this. So anyway, that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Blagden.
Just a quick question to Commissioner Brooks about his condition on trees to be selected by Mr. Garcia. Did you want to put any specs on that, like how big the trees are he's picking?
I can't do that. You know, he threw out some numbers, and whether those trees are available or not it's going to be in his best interest and everybody's best interest for him to find the biggest, healthiest trees that there are.
All right.
So
Just want to make sure
I'm going to trust him on that. I just don't want to hear any excuses that, well, we put that on there and we can't find it anywhere, so we're going to substitute it with something else, and it ends up back here at the at the Planning Commission again.
Okay.
So, does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Mentioned was that a pine tree, fir tree down in the corner that looks kind of sad. Is that part of the landscape plan to stay or to go? I think they've taken everything out they were gonna, so is that tree a staying tree?
I'll keep that over to the landscape architect to answer.
Which tree exactly in question are we talking about now?
In the
Fir tree? Fir?
far southeast corner, a fir tree, kind of sad looking. I assume it's not being removed or would have been removed.
Well, if it's slated to remain and it's existing and it hasn't been mysteriously taken out, then it should stay where it's at.
Okay.
Otherwise, I've got to plant 7 more in its place.
All right, so that was my thing, is because it's not a healthy tree. So
If you decide to remove it, I'm just going to request that we don't have to come in with 7 additional trees to replace that, so.
yeah, but I'm just saying, what's the status of it? Was are the trees to remain? Are they supposed to be healthy trees?
Please note also, this site has been stagnant for 8 months now based on this stop work order. There's no water going to any of these trees. There's been removal and grading processes going on. So yeah, everything out there that's living is living on a thread right now. Everything's super stressed.
Yeah, we've had a lot of rain, I think 15 inches.
Have we? I haven't noticed it.
We're really past the question
Yeah,
period,
well, I just,
so
well,
it's
I
just
asked the
open for
question, so I think
discussion.
Rafferty passed it to the landscape architect.
I just don't want to keep the landscape architect
Well,
up here for another question
He
and
just made a
answer.
statement that I need to ask a question about, if you don't mind.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you. So, if I understood what you just said, you're telling me there's no water at the site?
The existing trees right now are.
No. My question is there a spigot, is there a hose that they could drag around and water these trees, yes or no?
Yes, there is. However, they were told to stay off the site. As the best of my knowledge, I have not been contracted to be on site and do observations, so I can't answer that.
Okay.
But what I can tell you is that the existing trees.
There is a spigot on site because they're doing dirt work, so they have to get water from somewhere.
I'm
If
sure
it's a
there's
fire
on-site water,
hydrant
right.
and they're doing it.
That would be a question for Mr. Ling, the owner.
Okay. All right. Nothing. But it's important that there's water available. There was a meter already, so there should be water available to water the existing trees and maintain them. And then as soon as these trees go in, that there's water available and the irrigation goes in.
Well, of course, once the trees are slated to go in, yes. I mean, per the conditions, previous approved conditions, and the notes on the plans, they have to be irrigated temporarily.
Okay. All
As
right.
to the-
That's all. Thank you.
All right, then, something I mentioned last time, I still have the same concern about some type of performance standard. We want to, as the code says, restore the screening and privacy and character. What's the guarantee that this plan's going to do it?
It's not possible to restore complete privacy because of the fire code. I don't think we can have a performance standard in there requiring that the privacy be restored to the way that it was before because it wouldn't comply with the fire
No longer
code.
possible?
It's no longer possible. It wouldn't comply with the fire code.
True, but that's also the fire code has, we'll call them their own type of standards modifications where you don't have to comply with the letter of the code if you do X, Y, or Z. Does that come into play at all?
Typically related to the house. So that the construction of the house has what's called alternate means and methods. So they're doing additional fire protection for the house related to the fuel or the water availability of the hydrants in this particular area, which most new houses have to do because most areas don't necessarily meet the fire flow today.
All right, we'll have to look at that in the future. We really don't need to deal with that letter, do we? The neighbor letter. Then on those pittosporum, I would like a condition, if they're not there, that they be replaced with 36-inch box. Is that reasonable? And that the pine tree, if it does die, that it be replaced with a 36-inch box. And if we're not going to have a performance standard, we need some type of maintenance requirements or standards that, we have the bond, which I doubt is going to go past 5 years. What happens after 5 years if trees die, are purposely cut so they no longer screen? I would like to see some type of recorded long-term maintenance requirements. That the trees be maintained at their mature height and kept healthy. And if they die or are removed, they be replaced with like kind and quality. And with the silk tree and the power line, I'm still not sure on that, but it seems to be a concern for the crabs. Maybe they have a, kind of like my house, there's the tall pole across the street, and it drops down on my side to a lower pole before it goes underground. So I don't know if they have a lower drop pole, that the silk tree is going to be a problem.
So, Stephen, how about if we just put a condition to get rid of that silk tree? They're invasive. I had one, and I took it out 5 years ago, and I still have them things popping up everywhere. But how about if we put a condition to remove the silk tree and have a tree maximum height not more than 15 feet be put under the power lines? Would that kind of meet what you're trying to achieve?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's pittosporum, maintenance. Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Espinoza.
I have a question, point of order. Did Commissioner Brooks make a motion with conditions?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
No, I just said if I was
what it's
to,
gonna look
these
like.
were the conditions. So I wanted to hear everybody's arguments before we get to that
Okay.
point.
I want to thank the staff and the fire department for all of the work that's gone into this project so far. I think it's unbelievable, but it has. Here we are. I have no further questions or comments.
If I could add a comment really quick.
Sure.
I just wanted to respond to a condition that Commissioner Brooks suggested. As to the condition, or the proposed condition, that the trees be selected, tagged, and purchased before the landscape plan is submitted and approved, I don't believe the city can actually do that. The city can't enforce conditions until the plan has been approved. So just a note for the commission.
I hope that everyone's been, maybe Mr. Brooks, have you been keeping track of the proposed conditions so that you can make?
I have.
Then, all right. I also appreciate all the time and effort that's been put into this by staff, by the homeowners, by the neighbors, and by the commission. My strong recommendation is that we recommend to the city council that they approve of option number 2. We're not actually approving anything ourselves here. It's just going back to city council because they asked for our input. With the conditions listed by Mr. Brooks, and I'm fine with Mr. Blagden's conditions as well. My only concern would be regarding a long-term maintenance requirement. In spirit, I'm fine with that. I think that in terms of us being able to enforce, or the city being able to enforce anything past the construction phase, that it becomes problematic for us to be able to police that, essentially.
Well, that's why it's, if it's recorded on the property, then it can be enforced by, say, a neighbor who's impacted by it.
City, maybe that's a question for the city attorney. Is that something that we could impose as a condition, as a legal requirement, as in our capacity as planning commission?
That is something that I will confer with City Attorney Litfin about, and so if we want to take a recess or come back to the question, I'd be happy to provide an answer.
Well, we could include it, if the commission is so inclined, with an asterisk for when it goes to the council, and in that time, the city attorney's office can see if it's...
Well, Rafferty, maybe you could interject here. If this project is approved with conditions, that's the conditions of approval, correct?
Correct.
And if at any time those conditions aren't met, there is recourse for them to bring it back to those conditions of approval. Is that correct?
I think it falls back into what the chair was saying, into the policing of it in the future becomes a little more difficult to do.
I don't anticipate the city going out there and measuring the trees or doing that, but if there's a complaint, which, you know, I'm sure there would be if they had a big tree and it died and they cut it down, the city has an instrument to enforce it already. Is that correct? That's always been my understanding. I'm just trying to verify it.
Technically, yes. I only know of one other instance here where somebody has something recorded related to trees on a neighboring property, and it was property to property allows that owner to trim trees on the neighboring property. So it's
Okay, so the conditions of approval go with the resolution. Where is the resolution in 10 years? The document.
The resolution would be part of...
Yeah, well, that's why I've been trying to get for 25 years to have the resolutions recorded on the property so they're actually there for people to see, because maybe they'll be in the file, maybe they won't.
I don't know from a legal perspective whether we can record a city resolution as part of the title to the property or record a deed to the property.
I think you can
like
record
that's something we could do, but we could certainly have it be part of the resolution as part of the public record, and copies would be available to the public, as well as we would get copies to the neighbors, and then if they ever needed to go to the city to ask for enforcement, then they could go use that resolution and bring it to the city and ask that.
Yeah, the problem is, and I know I've tried, is some of the old documents, or even sometimes newer ones, they're not there. So if they're recorded, then you know where they are.
I just don't know if that's possible, and that's something that the city attorney could look into, whether it's something that could be legally recorded against the property. Maybe by the time that it goes up to city council, that analysis can be done.
The approval resolution with the conditions of approval and such, if that can be recorded on the property.
I will look into that specific question and we'll get back to the commission. In terms of recording a requirement to maintain the trees, I believe that can be something that the commission requires.
All right, and does anybody else have any further comments before we entertain a motion?
Yeah, I think back to my original four comments. I think 3 have been addressed. So just to be sure, so if for some reason they can't find any of these trees, it would come back to us automatically to review again, right? Okay. Sounds like the silt tree will be replaced with something less than, like we said, 15 feet or something. That was part of the discussion. And then for the 2 existing trees on the southeast side, if their bushes are not there, we'll have to have something there of a certain height. That's been addressed. Then lastly, the bond, right? So the bond for, say, 5 years to cover a third of the trees.
The bond wasn't one of my conditions. I kind of disagree with it. But, you know, I think that maybe we should get into that, maybe a condition or not.
Because what my concern is, three of the trees don't do well and die in front of the Crab's house, and they have no screening. And now we're somehow, not we're, but now it's up to, I guess, the city to somehow ensure that the homeowners are going to do that work. And what if there's this, you know, delay, and where you have a bond, you can go after the bond and get those trees installed sooner than later, right? Just
How do we determine the bond? I mean, these trees might cost $20,000 a piece. You know, to put a $100,000 or $200,000 bond on this for the trees, I feel it's unreasonable.
well, do we know what they cost? I mean, that's one question.
It's also labor.
Yeah.
Sorry. And I understand the concern. I understand the point of it. I just feel like it's unreasonable to put $100,000 or $200,000 bond on this project over the trees when we've already recorded it on the deed.
We haven't yet.
Well, I mean, but that is a, you know, if you want to put a bond and get rid of recording it on the deed, then, you know, that I would be more likely to go along with the bond. But honestly, I think putting a bond, you know, it's going to have to be a substantial bond if you truly want to try to cover replacing these trees.
Well, I don't think
But the thing
they
is,
all die.
the other thing that we need to realize here, they're going to plant these trees. As Rafferty said, it's going to take him 2 years to build the house, probably longer. And so in the next 2 years, they're going to have a chance to grow, to root, and to become healthy. So if they don't and they die, they have to be replaced before the house can get signed off anyway. So we have like this 2-year cushion protection that these trees are going to survive, because if they don't survive while they're building the house, he has to replace them. And as was brought up, they're going to need a crane to put them in. And it's going to be expensive to put them in the first time. It's going to be a lot more expensive to put them in after his hardscape's in. So I just don't feel like a bond is reasonable request.
So I prefer the recordation over the bond.
And I put that on my conditions, so
Well, can we put that first? But if that's not doable due to some legal reason, then we will go back to some type of bond.
Is there going to be recommendations to city council anyway, so we could propose them in the alternative and leave it up to them to decide?
Ultimately this decision, these are conditions of our recommendation, correct, Rafferty? Doesn't this go back to city council and they're going to make the final approval?
Correct.
Okay, so these are conditions that we recommend. It doesn't mean they're going to accept them, right? So I guess at this point, it doesn't matter what we put in there or what we don't. I just feel like it's unreasonable. And so anyway, that's all.
Isn't there usually a grading bond?
There's a grading bond. They already have it in place.
Yeah, but the grading bond is till the project's done, right? Until the grading is done. And that's, you know what that bond is for. So if they start the grading and they don't finish the project, there's a bond to get it back to its natural terrain or what it was before that. So we can't have an unlimited bond that no bond company is going to put up a bond for, 100 years on trees. So
No, but it's just a performance bond for completion of landscaping plan. But I think we have that with the extra 2 years, and they don't get their C of O if the trees aren't there or thriving.
Well, it's a big advantage by them putting the trees in the beginning to ensure that when it's signed off at the end, those trees are alive and healthy and in the right spot.
That actually is another good condition, that we have some time frame that the trees need to be in by X. Although they're not getting their building permits until the trees are in, that's probably enough of an incentive.
That's already a condition.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, are we ready to entertain a motion? And Mr. Brooks, I'm going to rely upon you to articulate it.
All right, I made some notes here. So I would make a motion to make recommendation to City Council to approve option 2 of the landscape slash fire code plan that we have before us this evening, and would make recommendations of approval under the following conditions. 1, that the landscape plan have XY dimensions so that it's very clear where all these trees are to be located. 2, the location of the trees be verified by a civil engineer by surveying the property and staking it out. 3, that the trees be verified by an independent landscape architect at some point at the end to make sure that in fact the trees that are on the plan are what they were supposed to be and of the size that they were supposed to be. 4, the trees be selected by Garcia and Associates. 5, and I'm going to just say, I don't know the names of the trees, but the southwest trees that, if they're not there, they be replaced with 36-inch box trees. 6, remove the silk tree and replace the tree with a species that has a full height of 12 to 15 feet. And 7, record the conditions of the landscape plan on the deed if legally possible. So that's the 7 that I have.
Mr. Blagden.
Just a correction on the pittosporum, that if they're replaced, if they're not there or viable, it's on the east side of the property.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
And then the
And what are they called?
pittosporum.
I don't know how to spell that. Can you put that word in there?
Pittosporum.
All right.
And then I had mentioned about the pine tree in the southeast corner to be replaced with a 36-inch box if its dies are not viable.
Well, Rafferty, how is, maybe I missed it. There's a pine tree in here. Doesn't the fire code demand that pines, cypress, eucalyptus all be removed?
Certain species of pine have to be removed. Not all pine.
Okay.
Certain species.
All right. It's not one of the long needle things. Okay. Well, I think that's going to, Stephen, without me going through the plan and figuring it out, is it on the plan?
I didn't see it. That's why I asked the question of if it's, I thought if it was going to be removed, it would be removed, but it's hard to tell if it's on the plan now. But it is there and it's doing something, but it's kind of sad.
Well, then why don't we just do this? Number 8 would be existing trees and planted trees need to be, what would the word be?
Viable?
Yeah, healthy, watered, maintained, I guess. The existing trees and the new trees planted must be maintained.
But what if the existing trees die? Then they should be
Well,
replaced.
if it's watered and it's fertilized and it's a big tree and they didn't cut it down, then it's probably going to stay there. So
I don't want to set up a scenario where we have a problem where as a plant died or a tree died, because as he's discussed, there's been some issues with watering lately, and if it's, I just don't want this to end back up on our desk where now there's a dispute about whether this condition was satisfied, and
Well, if it's not on here, then I'm not going to put it on here because ultimately the landscape plan is going to be what is going off of. And before they could get their permits, all these trees have to be in that are on the plan and before they get their building permits. And before it's signed off, it has to be verified again by a landscape architect and by the fire department that all these trees are in and healthy. So I think we're covered on that one, Stephen.
And then the maintenance portion was landscaping be maintained, not cut below mature height, replaced with like kind and quality if they die or removed.
Well, they might be 25 feet tall by the time they die or whatever. We can what if all night long.
Yeah, but that's the maintenance. That's why we're not having the bond.
But I thought in
because we're
our
having
original,
maintenance.
wasn't there something about planting them after grading and maintaining them? Wasn't that in part of the original?
Original conditions for the house are that the trees to be planted and irrigated prior to the sign off for the rough grading, so before they can start physical, like vertical construction, have to be in and irrigated.
Yeah, my condition was for what happens after the house is done, signed off on.
I think we already have 8 conditions. I mean, it's pretty extensive. I don't want to get too into the weeds
Yeah.
here where we're nitpicking everything.
Well, that's the most
Well,
important.
isn't that why you wanted it recorded?
Yeah, but it has to be there to record.
Well, if at some point they want to bring back what I think we need to leave it up to the attorney to decide what the terminology is to get recorded.
All right, so put in a condition that the city attorney will draft a maintenance and replacement condition to be recorded on the property.
Well, then number 7 of mine is record the conditions of the landscape plan with replacement plan. Replacement plan drafted by city attorney.
Maintenance and replacement.
But we're not sure if that's even possible at this point, correct?
We're not even sure because I have if legally can.
Well, she said it was.
If we put as a backup plan, if not possible, develop a financial mechanism to ensure the tree replacement plan is adhered to, or something that is, again, there has to be something in place.
Well, ultimately, it's not our decision. It's going to be city council's. And I think my experience with city council, the more complicated we make this, the more they're going to reject it.
But at least if it comes
the city council has the ability to add whatever they want to the conditions. It's not like this is set in stone. So.
But if it's not there, they're not likely to add it.
I don't think that you can require somebody to post a bond that lasts indefinitely.
No one's saying that.
Yeah, there'd be a time period for that.
What time period are we talking about then?
Well, that's only if you can't do a maintenance plan.
It's kind of your plan B, right? If
Yeah.
for some reason you can't do it, there'd be some other financial mechanism in place for no more than 5 years for, to make sure that the tree replacement plan is adhered to or something that, again, not saying that we're taking up a level, that it could be something that still needs to be.
5 years from when they're planted or when they get final on the house?
When they're planted.
And
Give you an extra 3 years.
Just to clarify, our office does believe that you could record a requirement to maintain the trees. We can obviously look into the exact language that would be appropriate in this situation, but just to kind of add that to the conversation.
Yeah, I think that's better than the bond. The bond's putting a kind of heavy-duty expense on the...
And I have that already as condition number 7, so I think we're covered.
All right.
So that is my motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Open for
I
discussion?
will call, is there any further discussion on this? I'm going to call a vote then.
Can I ask this one question? So what if it comes back as no?
No, she said yes. So she just has to write it up.
Well, she's verifying, right?
She's been talking with the city attorney.
Yeah, City Attorney Litfin has confirmed that the recorded maintenance requirement would be acceptable.
Okay, so it's doable. Okay, got got it.
She was texting while we were.
It's the brain waves, you know, sent to Todd, yes.
Okay, with that, I will call a vote, and we're going to start on this side with Mr. Espinoza. Mr. Blagden.
Yes.
I vote yes. Mr. Brooks.
Yes.
Mr. Lucas.
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, that ends the public hearing portion of tonight's calendar, and we will move on to administrative items. First, does anybody need a break before we move on? And we've been going for 2 hours. If not, okay, we'll plow ahead. And we'll go to number 8, which is the review of the fencing standards. It's their staff report.
Thank you, Chair and Planning Commission. At our last meeting, we continued a discussion related to fencing standards and allowing solid block walls within the front property line area. There were some draft language that Chair Hess and Commissioner Blagden put together back at our April meeting last year. So we took those and added a little bit of information from our last meeting related to the color chain link and a couple other items to it, and just updated the language for the commission to look at and review and consider a little bit further in the discussion process.
All right, I'm going to start with Mr. Blagden.
Well, thank you. As this sits right now, anybody can get a block wall just because they want it. There's no reason or rationale needed, which I don't think is a good idea. Then one of the reasons is, well, actually not on that, on block walls in particular, which are unsightly and a blight. The code currently says that everything over 42 inches, it needs to be 92% open. 90% open. So what that means is in a 10-foot span, you got 9 feet with nothing, and 1 foot can be like an extension of the pillar up, or you can have it be a wrought iron fence with half-inch pickets and an end to it in the top and bottom. But you can't have like that one on West Road where they have like 3 foot wide solid block and a fence. It's basically, it's either nothing or a wrought iron fence. You know, the pillar and nothing. And people seem to be math challenged, or they just don't want to follow the code, but I don't know that I've seen many that actually comply with the code. Then, as I've said before, I don't see a problem with chain link fence in the front setback as long as it's landscaped. There's one actually Commissioner Brooks had mentioned over the months on the corner of Hacienda and Cañada Sombre. The people put up a chain link fence. It wasn't sightly, but they put up plumbagos. Now you don't even see it, and it's actually more pleasing just to see the vegetation than a unsightly block wall.
But the reverse of that, Mr. Blagden, is the one on Hacienda and Avocado Crest, where they have the fence, they had stuff that planted and it's dead, and there's white stuff behind it, and
that's a code enforcement issue.
Okay.
I mean, the same thing as there are block walls in the city that are peeling and half falling over. That's not a matter of should they have the block wall. That's needs to be maintained.
Well, I think that the pillars is an architectural feature, and I think that that's very attractive. But that's me.
As far as what?
Well, like the house that you mentioned on Hacienda, where he's got the pillars in between. Now, he put those slats in. He had something, but he replaced that with the slats. Probably he's trying to deflect the sound. So the whole 6 foot, 90% open and all that over 42 inches, it's, to me, it's just one of those parts of the code that makes no sense. On
Well,
one,
if you don't like it, we
hold
can
on,
change it.
hear me out. On one hand, we're saying, oh, you need to screen your house so that you can't see it. And on the other hand, you're saying, well, no, leave the fence open so that we can see into your yard and see your house. So which is it? If you want to see the house and you want to see the landscaping in the yard, then leave it open and let's get rid of the 50% coverage. And
Well, actually, we're having both, because when you when you put up a wall, it needs to be landscaped. So that openness is probably going to be filled in by some bush or vine anyway.
okay.
My thing was, what's the minor exception for? Why is someone getting a 6-inch solid block wall? Or you can just have it because you want it. Do you want to see the city walled off? I like when you drive the street, you mostly see vegetation. The block walls really don't even comply with the general plan. We originally talked about putting them on Hacienda and Habra because people are subject to noise, and then it became a little more subjective with if someone can prove they have noise, then they can get a 6-foot wall as a sound wall. And then it came down to, well, they don't have to prove it, they just have to say it or want it. And then it went to nothing. You can just have it for whatever reason.
Well, I understand, and unfortunately, there are people up here that do things very inexpensively and don't look nice. But I can tell you, I've been in some very, very, very expensive neighborhoods, and the homes are all walled off, and it looks very professional. It looks very nice, and they have landscaping, but you can see the walls. They're all stuccoed. They're, with a cap on top, and nice gates, and so I don't necessarily agree with that having walls up is that big of a deal. Yeah, it would be nice if they were landscaped with some kind of vines, but a nice wall, to me, that's stuccoed and has a rock cap on it or something that's architecturally pleasing, is not a bad thing. So anyway, I'm kind of going along with this whole fence thing, but I 100% disagree with chain link fence in the front, and I won't vote for anything that says that can be done. That's a deal breaker for me. And I agree with you, that's not the front of their property, even though it's on the street. And it does look better now that they're putting the blue plumbago on there, but it looked horrible, and it still looks horrible with the part before that. And I'm not even sure that they put that awful close to the street. I don't know that they got an encroachment permit for that fence, did they? So that fence isn't even legal. So anyway, so if we're going to do it, I think that we need to do it in a way that's going to improve the neighborhood. And that's the direction that this city needs to go, because if you've been in on any of these budget meetings and things that are going on, the city's going to have to improve itself in order to generate revenue and increase the property values. And I think that at some point we're going to have to start raising our standards here. And if that means rewriting the general plan, then that's what it means. But I think that we should look at what the future is and what we can do to help improve the property values of the city more so than our personal preferences over what's acceptable or what's not. So, the reverse side of that is on Hacienda, on the opposite side, just past the park, if you're going north, Stephen, that they have that black fence, that black tarp. It's horrible.
It's code enforcement. They shouldn't have it.
It's horrible, but again, you just made the argument for however long about, well, what if they do it and then it doesn't happen, right? So you could say, oh yeah, well, they have to landscape it, and then they landscape it, and then the landscape dies, and now you got a chain link fence with a bunch of dead landscape on it. So,
Well, that house on Hacienda with the slats,
past that one, before the cypress trees, you mean that one?
yeah.
Yeah.
That, I don't know how long you've driven past that, but that wall has gone through a couple of iterations. The first couple, they were falling over, and then this is the latest one. But you can have walls that don't look good too, just like chain link fence.
Well, I agree, and that's why I said to have a standard that it's stuccoed or it's solid stone veneer and have a decorative rock cap on it.
Yeah, but it's still, that doesn't stop it from getting peeling and falling over.
Well, we could what if all night long, so I don't want to sit here and what if with you. So anyway, if there's recommendations for change on this, I think you should just make them, and so we can all keep moving forward here.
Do we want to have any reason why you want a wall, or just have at it?
No, so I went through our April video of our meeting and reviewed this again. And at the end of that discussion, I thought we all agreed that, it would be, unless approved by our minor exception for properties with street noise, and or safety, security issues. And then that would be, those were kind of the two reasons, but I'd like to propose to even make it a little more broad, and add and or any other reasonable concerns. So if there was something else that came into play beyond safety and security, noise, there would be that option for someone to do that. I do think each tract is different, each street is different. Where I live, it's a dead-end street, probably 30 homes. None of the homes have a block wall in front of the house. If they were to do one, that would look odd. It wouldn't fit within the kind of the look and feel of our street. And if I got a letter saying that they're going to build a 6-foot block wall, I would object. It just doesn't fit into just the way our street looks. So I think there's times it looks great, for certain houses, for certain conditions. For others, like where I live, it doesn't quite fit that need. Where if it was 4 feet with the 2 feet above with wrought iron, it would fit more of that look and feel. So I do think that, having some type of language that's still broad enough to give people the reason to ask for it, and then for, Rafferty and team to approve it, that's what I would be looking for to be added to what's currently here.
So you're basically saying that it wouldn't be normally just granted to somebody that wanted it. They'd have to show some kind of a special reason that they were entitled, or that they should be able to get an exception to get a wall.
Yeah, to kind of address Stephen's comment, at least there has to be some reason why you're doing it, right? I mean, since like for me, it's a dead-end street, so why would you say traffic noise, is a concern when, people are going 15 miles an hour down our street? There's only 30 homes. That shouldn't be a major issue. We don't have motorcycles flying down our streets. It's a pretty quiet street, for example. So again, I think every situation is different, based on the location of the house and the street you live on.
Let's say, though, that I remember when Ray was talking about this before, he said, well, a lot of homes want to have a wall because of security issues and their break-ins around the Habra Heights. What if somebody came forward and said, well, I'm concerned about security? Would we require them to prove that they had a security problem, or would it just be based on stated belief?
That would go to, I guess, staff. I mean, obviously, if there were a lot of recent break-ins or security issues, and you can show that would meet that need. But if there were no issues for whatever, that's just it's a case-by-case scenario, for something like that.
Well, walls really don't provide security other than very minimum and mostly psychological if someone wants to jump a 6-foot wall, they're over it. As I said before, if you want security, you plant bougainvillea, pyracantha, cactus, which I have all 3. No one's going through pyracantha. I mean, when I cut mine, I do it so that I don't even touch it myself. I cut it, I grab it with the pruning shears, and then I put it in the barrel and take a shovel and push it down, because every part of it is a spike. Cactus is a good security fence. But security, to me, you can say someone wants security, but it's not giving them any.
Right, Mr. Espinoza?
On the whole security question, what makes people safe in their homes is a very subjective thing. And I think to have them have to come before the city and say, I don't feel safe in my home, I want to put up a block wall, what do we do with that? How do we say that that's not a valid concern? You have no reason to be concerned about your security. So I have problems with that, quite frankly.
Yeah, I kind of feel like we should either say yes or no to walls, because I think that you're going to encounter issues where people are going to say, well, my neighbor has a wall, why can't I have a wall? And then we're going to get into, was there playing favorites? Was, is there a precedent that's been created? But I think that's what we should do. And if we're going to allow walls, then when we want it to blend in a little bit better, then we should require some landscaping to soften it. Also, as far as the changes that were made by staff here, the only comments that I had on that were just that we're talking about earth tone stucco, and I think we'd also discussed allowing for white, because a lot of homes are white. And then the chain link fencing in the front yard areas is prohibited, and we'd also talked about having chain link fencing be prohibited along property lines that abut the street.
And also, if we recall, this with the city council whenever they did the first time, and there were at least 2 city council members that did not support a 6-foot solid wall. So I don't know if the other 3s weighed in on what they thought. I think they had some comments, but they didn't necessarily approve or against it. So I think if we want something to get approved with a 6-foot solid wall, it has to have something on there based on the first experience. So we can send it up again and probably get sent back down. So, again, providing something that gives enough decision-making for city staff to, make a decision on that, I think it's something we should consider.
So it sounds like most of our sticking point at this point just has to do with walls, and to a lesser extent, you had a concern about chain link fencing and thinking that people should be allowed to have chain link.
Yeah, like let's say you have kids or a dog, and you don't want to run it in the street. You don't want to have to spend $25,000 or whatever it might be, more or less, to put up a block wall when you could put up a chain link fence and some bushes. When I bought my house, it was all chain link, which I hated looking at. So I planted a couple of 100 bushes, trees, and vines. Now you don't even see it, and then it looks nice. You drive by and along the street, you can't even see the chain link fence.
Well, if they want to keep their dogs in or their kids in, they can put wrought iron fence up. The wrought iron fence is not that expensive unless you make it really fancy.
Just keep your irrigation away from it.
What's that?
Keep your irrigation system away from it.
The new stuff is powder coated. I mean, mine, the sprinklers hit it, and it's all powder coated, and it was modular that I bought so that you can put it on a hill, and I didn't need to weld everything up, and it was not that expensive. It would have probably cost more to put up a wood fence. Chain link might have been cheaper, but when you put chain link on a hill, it doesn't cover that well. If you're worried about your dog getting out underneath the fence. So, anyway, I wouldn't vote for anything that said chain link fence is allowed in the front yard, whether it's landscaped or not. So, but I'm just one vote. So,
And one more comment. I think we discussed this before. So for the first section where, yeah, we're not allowing chain link fences, wooden fencing, thing, I thought we were going to say, you know, for new construction as of this date or something in there. I just want to make sure that, you know, if someone had a chain link fence, for example, in the front of their house, and the neighbor complained and said, hey, they're not up to code, that, you know, they wouldn't be forced to replace their chain link fence because they had it installed 10 years ago. And how do you show that, yeah, I had this fence 10 years ago, so.
Yeah, we did have a sentence in there. Chain link fencing is prohibited for new construction after, well, this is August 1st, 2025. That's how long we've been doing it. So we can put in some future date.
It was in there as I started it, but I think I might have taken it out as we went through. Because I changed it from 2025 to XXXXXXX, just to make it more mobile. Yeah, typically, this would kick in from a staff perspective, looking at it and enforcing it. Installing new fencing would be where we would enforce it, not at a neighbor complaining about a neighbor's fence. It would be more that new fencing going in, new project going in. We've allowed, just up the street here, there's a house that has barbed wire on it. A vehicle drove into that fence. We let them fix the fence and replace the barbed wire because that was the condition it was in at the time. You know, it was not their fault. It was an accident and the car drove into it. So it's typically how staff looks at those things.
All right. Well, it sounds like for the most part, people are against having a chain link fence as far as the front yard is concerned and anything facing streets, with the exception of Mr. Blagden. And then as far as the wall is concerned, before we put a motion on forward, then I would, I guess, just try to get the temperature then and see who's in favor of a wall and allowing walls and who's not in favor of allowing walls, or would allow walls with only in special exceptions if you prove that you have a privacy or noise problem. You know, Mr. Lucas, you think that it should be only if you can prove that there's a special consideration that would allow you to have those walls, correct?
Yes, because right now it requires a minor exception, so you do have to go and say, I want this exception because of what? I mean, it just seems like just by that itself means that you have to have a reason. So yeah, I would like to just, you know, add in that language where, again, unless approved by a minor exception for properties with street noise, security and safety, and or another reasonable concern. So that would just replace that first kind of sentence there.
Well, and as Mr. Espinoza brought up, that pretty much means anybody wants to put up a wall can put up a wall, because they just got to go, well, I want it for security reasons, and who are you to argue, or who's the city to argue that you don't need a wall for security reasons? Is that kind of how you said it, sir?
It's a very subjective standard, and if
Yeah.
somebody doesn't feel safe in their home, how is the city staff to tell them you're perfectly safe and you can't have a wall? It just doesn't make any sense.
Well, same goes with street noise, unless you give it some decibel level over a certain period of time level. I could go lie in my street for an hour and no car come down, but I could say, I don't like the street noise because the trash truck come by twice a week.
Well, again, we could what if all night long, so.
Because the other option is you don't have a minor exception. You just let it go, right?
Yeah, then you might as well not have minor exceptions, but then, and I'm okay if you say, okay, if you're gonna put up a wall in the front, it has to be stuccoed, it has to be covered with stone veneer, and it has to have a decorative or a stone cap on it, and if it's not, and it needs to be landscaped. And so, you know, that way they plant vines on it, or it's a big stone wall, or, you know, I think landscaping is probably the best alternative, but I feel like it should be stuccoed to match the house before it's landscaped.
Well, what about real or faux stone veneer?
Well, I'm okay with that. I mean, you know, there's, my neighbor has a wall. It's not a 6-foot wall, but he has a wall, like retaining wall, and it's all river rock stone veneer, and I think it looks very nice. It's a lot better than just a...
Yeah, we have that in there, earth tone stucco or stone veneer, and a
Okay,
decorative cap.
okay, so I'm fine with that, and you're right, we might as well take out the minor exception because there's no forcing of it.
Actually, let me take that back. I would suggest keeping it in there because at least the neighbors are notified, right?
So through the minor exception process, the directly abutting neighbors receive a notification to it. So it's not the 500 feet like when you come to the planning commission. So the public hearing we had tonight, everybody within 500 feet got a letter, ran in the newspaper, those things to it. But minor exception, it's a smaller radius. Letters only go to directly abutting neighbors, who would be those that sort of are surrounding the property. When we first started talking about it, we looked at it as being a planning commission level approval. So you think about someone like an owner that's going to take the time to prepare a plan, pay the application fee, come to the commission, have a hearing, go through that process, is probably going to complete a very nice project and meet all of those requirements and conditions, which was one of those things that we had. I think when we very first started talking about it, was looking at it as not a staff level approval, but a planning commissioner level approval. So it would have to come to the commission to approve a 6-foot fence, which would, it's $3,600 deposit to come to the commission. So obviously it's not going to take all of that money. You'll get most of that back in deposit. But like, newspaper notice nowadays is $600 typically to run those newspaper notices, and some of those, a little bit of staff time to it. So there'll be some cost associated to it, but that would get you everybody within 500 feet. There would be a hearing. It would be more than one person making the decision to it as another option we could look at again.
Well, with no objective standards, there's no reasons for staff to deny it, and there's nothing for a neighbor to complain about. So from a practical standpoint, it should just be in there as something you can do. Not that I want that, but I'm just saying that based upon what the language is, there's no point to the minor exception. Because how would you say no?
Like we were talking earlier, like I was talking to one of the commissioners earlier, and we were kind of talking about minor exception process, and when an issue or a concern comes up from a neighboring property owner, typically what we would do is we would look at and have that conversation with the person who has the concern to kind of try to understand what the concern is. Sometimes it might be visibility of like roadways and getting in or out, some of those things, and look at those concerns, go back and work with the applicant to see if there's a way to modify or change or push back or cut in or additional landscaping or something to mitigate that to that level. And then in the past, like we've seen here before, where we kind of hit that impasse with it, staff has forwarded it to the commission to let everybody hear everything and make a group decision.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point about visibility. We already have something in the code about corner visibility, isn't there?
It's not the greatest standard in there as far as like corner visibility and those things. Yeah, because like you coming out of Incañada onto Hacienda Road, like you got to pull out pretty far because the way that fencing runs there today.
Yeah, so we actually need to fix that, but there really still isn't much of anything someone can object to. They could say, it blocks my visibility, but there's no objective standard for them to say, see, they're supposed to have this. If it meets that 6 feet back from the edge of the pavement or property line, whichever is greater, then they're okay.
When I wrote it in there, I changed it a little bit, so I added an additional 3 feet from the 6. So
For the landscaping.
to add be able to landscape
Oh,
in
it'd be
front of
9
it, so
feet.
it would be 9 feet back from the edge of the pavement.
So 9 feet from the edge of the pavement or the property line? Is that, because
Yeah.
sometimes the edge of the pavement is here, but the property line 8 feet farther back because the city didn't make the full width road. So is it from the edge of the property line? Would that take precedence over the edge?
Whichever's greater.
Yeah, because it's not written to whichever is greater, it's just written to 9 feet from the edge of the roadway.
But what if the 9 feet is on city right away?
That's where we'd be 9 feet.
No, I'm saying one of the things in there is it says it needs to be on their property. So if the property doesn't start from 10 feet off the road, then the wall is 10 feet off the road. And the reason you want to do that is if you let someone wall in city right-of-way, then the city is, and this actually was a discussion the council had in the 90s, then the city is accepting the liability for what goes on now in that land that the abutter has taken for themselves that actually belongs to the city. So that's why you want it on
Well,
property.
again, we can look at Hacienda. The easement, one of the houses has their fence out into the city easement area for Hacienda. If we ever wanted to widen it, their wall would have to come out and their fence because...
Yeah, there's a lot of ones that aren't on the property. That's why I put that in there going forward.
Yeah,
It should
so
be.
I think if we're gonna put the setback, it should be, 9 feet from the property line or 10 feet from the property line, not from the pavement. Because some people don't know that their property line isn't the pavement, and that way they have to figure out where the property line is, and there's no issues at that point.
Agreed. So Rafferty, back to Mike, and just one question. So if we just had it as a minor exception and no criteria, and the letters went out to the nearby neighbors and 2 complained, would it eventually go to the planning commission if there was enough disagreement that it couldn't be resolved at staff level?
That's what we've done in the past.
Great. And Mr. Espinoza, do you have any objections to homeowners having the right to build a wall that's landscaped versus a fence? And Mr. Or white,
They're different colors,
or white.
or earth tones.
We just don't want it to be something that's pink or orange or something like that. All right, and then Mr. Blagden, would you be on board with a motion that would allow a wall?
No, because one, I think people should have a chain link in the front of his landscaped, and 2, I don't think there should be no reason why you're getting the wall.
You're against any wall under any circumstances?
No, I think there should be reasons. That's why we'd had them before. But and I don't object to walls. I mean, walls can look nice. You go through certain cities, and the walls, it's part of how that city looks. But here, and according to the general plan, the thing is you're driving down the street and you see lush vegetation, not walls and houses.
All right, well, I think we all know where we stand on this, and at this point, is there anybody willing to make a motion?
I wasn't taking notes as to any conditions or changes, so I probably wouldn't be a good person to make the motion. So, how about you, Mr. Lucas?
Yeah, so I'll just go back to my initial statement. So I realize that, let me just give some explanation that, yes, reason could be vague, that you may just want because of safety. But again, that would go to city staff, and if you had neighbors that were complaining for having issues and had to be resolved between the owner and the local neighbors, it might go to the planning commission to vote, right? I think that could be done, but yeah, if someone said they have a security concern and no neighbors complain and so on, and that's up to staff to, approve it if it makes sense. So I think we still need to have something in there. It's a minor there has to be a reason why you're claiming a minor exception. So again, I would propose, under this second.
So just before you make that proposal, if I could just interject something?
Yep.
Tonight was a prime example of what happens when you let the neighbors dictate what you could do on your property. So the fact that the neighbors have a problem with me putting a wall on my property, I don't want to give the neighbors that power.
But they currently does. A letter goes out and neighbors can complain, right?
That's with an exception.
Correct, and that's what the current language is.
I know, and that's why I think it should be removed.
Okay, well, I can't remove it. It has to, for me, as a resident in my situation with my house, I would want the right to be able to complain if a neighbor proposed a block wall fence on my street. Again, every house is different, every neighborhood in the Heights is different, it's very different types of.
All right, I guess I can go along with that there would be a process, and the process, as what he said, it'd be announced, and then it would end up, if the city can't make the decision, it would come back to the planning commission to make the decision.
Yes.
And then the people are gonna spend a whole lot of money to get their wall approved, but, okay, I'll go along with that.
What's the basis of your objection, though?
Just because when I drive down my street to get to my house, there's a 40-foot block wall that looks like I'm coming out of SoFi Stadium out of the tunnel, right? It doesn't match the.
Oh, I don't disagree with you, but I'm saying, what are you pointing to in the language that allows the staff to agree with you?
It's just hearing all the feedback, based on the residents. So it's taken into all. I mean, yeah, there's nothing that says, well, tough luck, neighbor. That it's just taking into account all the information and making a reasonable determination to then bring to the planning commission to say, hey, these are the concerns of the neighbors. This is why the homeowner wants to do it. And as a group, we take that into consideration and we make a vote, right? So I'm sure a lot of neighbors wouldn't complain. A lot of homes, it looks great. If it fits that type of home, again, but some neighborhoods, I think that some neighbors would have an issue potentially. And those handful of cases potentially would come up to planning commission to make that vote.
Well, I think then you need something in there about, and I can't think off the top of my head how you phrase it, that unless X% of neighbors object.
Well, I'd leave it up to city staff. If it's one person.
But that becomes then arbitrary.
Yes, but I don't know if at this level we need to get into that level of detail. I think at some point you have to give Rafferty and his team enough flexibility to make that determination. And is it one? I don't know. It depends on what the neighbors' concerns are, and can you mitigate that with landscaping and a vine that covers the entire wall? There could be certain circumstances, right? Versus covering half the wall, that may be a bigger concern to some people. So,
Rafferty, is there enough objectivity in the language that you could say, gee, we need to take this to the planning commission because of these objectives, and there'd be something to present to us as to why to say no?
It's more that it's if you can't broker that compromise for the wall, then we take it to the commission and let the commission kind of weigh out what the issues are and whether it's appropriate to approve or not to approve.
All right, so it sounds like there's a motion.
yeah, so I guess I'd like to make a motion again for section 71840, L, where currently it says, unless approved by again, I know this is all red line, but basically the second paragraph on this page, the red line, it would say, unless approved by a minor exception for properties with street noise, security and safety, and or another reasonable concern, at least 90% of the portion of the wall over 42 inches, that remaining language. So it's just basically putting that first, 15 words I said as that lead sentence into just before it says at least 90%.
Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second it.
All right, we'll call the vote then, and Mr. Lucas?
Yes.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
I vote yes. Mr. Blagden?
No.
Mr. Espinoza? Motion carries. So these are recommendations then that will go to City Council for review.
Correct. It'd go to City Council for authorization to initiate that code, the code amendment, which would then bring it back to the commission to review the ordinance change and then make that formal recommendation back to City Council for adoption.
All right. The next item is the number 9 expedited permit process. I'm going to move that we table the discussion on this item because it was really Ray Fernandez's proposal, and he's not here this evening. It's also past 9 o'clock. So I think that we can probably move this over till next month.
I'm fine with that. I don't know that, we don't have to vote on continuing it, right? She's the chair. She could just use the gavel.
She has the power.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. That is the end of the administrative items. We don't have any further public comments for items not on the agenda. Are there any staff comments?
Just a couple. This Saturday is the Easter egg hunt at the park. So the Proven Association is putting on the Easter egg hunt at the park. It's a very fun event, especially if you have little ones. It's great. There's face painter, balloon twister, petting zoo, and the Easter bunny may be making an appearance on a fire truck to it. So great event. Come check it out this Saturday. And then also for the commission, we are time for us to review our harassment and ethics training. So Christina is actually in the process right now of trying to schedule a date for that, which will be in April. So as soon as we have an idea of the availability of the JPIA, our insurance company, to come out and do it, we'll let you know. We do it in one whole day. So half the day is harassment training with JPIA, and then city attorney teaches us ethics for the other half of the day. So it's just every 2 years we have to do it, and it gives us one great opportunity to knock it out in one day. So we'll be letting everybody kind of know when that's coming up here pretty quick, as soon as Christina can get it scheduled with those various people. That's all I have at the moment.
Thank you. Are there any planning commission comments? I just wanted to say thank you, everybody, for getting this canola project done. I know this was not easy, and I'm really pleased with how well we all work together in getting things done. I know we don't always agree on everything, but I feel like we've been very productive in getting projects passed, and I just wanted to say thank you. And with that, meeting's adjourned.
Wait. I have a question.
Oh, all right. More comments. Go ahead. Mr. Espinoza, you can go first.
This may reflect my bias as a person who's retired, but I want to know why these meetings start at 6:30 and not 5 o'clock or 5:30.
Good question. Staff?
Well, as
Stephen could probably answer it better than I can.
Mr. Espinoza, as someone who works 12 or 14 hours a day, I couldn't make it here at 5 o'clock. I would, so.
Yeah, and then they used to meet at 7:30, and then it was backed up to 6, and then the compromise was 6:30. Because it's both, like Rick said, people working, for residents to be able to come, but also for it not to be so late that you're getting to bed at 11.
Any other comments?
Oh, yeah. Hopefully you all had a chance to go look at the 1730 site with the pad and the grading. Something I mentioned before, I mean, that's like such a stark example of disturbed area and graded area. We used to have disturbed area and graded area as 2 line items on plans, so that you had your area that was final graded, and then in order to do that you might have to go a little to the outside. That's the disturbed area. But if you look at 1730 and then also 1700, the whole lots are disturbed. It's really, I think, a mockery of the codes and the general plan that they, there's nothing left that was original. So just something to think about.
Any other comments? With that, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.